Hello, and welcome to Business Lessons from the Military. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and we are here every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. No, wait, 11, 12, 1, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Sorry, a little bit off this morning. And we discuss military doctrine, history, great leaders, and apply the things we learn to the business world to improve our companies, those either that we have ourselves or that we work for. And for the last quite a number of weeks, we've been talking about Marine Corps warfighting doctrine. And we've been applying principles of warfighting to the business world. So today we're going to wrap up the latest segment of that. And so I'm going to jump right into it by sharing my screen. And there we are. And let's see, where is it? Here we go, slideshow. Okay. So business lessons from the military. Here's our handy dandy PowerPoint, which every good military presenter has. The 3 pillars of attainment. For those of you who are not familiar with this, I invite you to go to our YouTube channel, and I've got a show that talks about this as a system for organizing our lives and understanding where we need to have our focus from time to time. Okay. And so we've been talking about the conduct of war applied to business. And in previous shows, which again are all available on our YouTube channel, we talked about maneuver warfare, and then we talked about orienting on the enemy, philosophy of command, shaping the action, decision-making, mission tactics, commander's intent. And then last week, well, actually 2 weeks ago, because I was out sick last week, we talked about main effort. And we're going to wrap up our discussion on the conduct of war applied to business, talking about combined arms. Now, this may sound like something completely unrelated to business. And I think you will see that nonetheless, this is one of the most important aspects of how we manage our businesses, how we lead our businesses. So what I'm going to do first is talk about what combined arms means in terms of how the Marine Corps operates, so you can understand it in its original context. And then I'm going to apply it to an example in business so you can see how it works in practice here in the civilian world. Okay, so when we talked about combined arms, we're talking about the full integration of all the forces that a military can bring to bear. So the Marine Corps is the epitome of this because it operates in the water, on land, and in the air, all within the Marine Corps. Okay, so you have something called a MAGTF. That's an acronym, MAGTF, and it stands for Marine Air Ground Task Force. And what happens is you're taking all of the abilities of the Marine Corps and you're using them in order to attain a particular military objective. Okay, it works at the top level, the strategic level. It works at the tactical level, the lowest level. Okay, and the reason the Marine Corps follows this doctrine is they're looking to create what they call a no-win situation for the enemy. So in other words, no matter what the enemy does, no matter how they react or respond to the attack by the Marine forces, they have no good options, only bad ones. Okay, so let me give you an example that comes straight out of this is the document that we're working with, by the way. This is the Marine Corps warfighting doctrine. So let's say you've got a small unit, like a rifle team, or maybe a full platoon, okay? And within that, you have Marines armed with automatic weapons, okay? M16s most likely, okay? And you have some Marines who have grenade launchers, or maybe even you have a mortar team. Okay, so the way the Marine Corps are going to use combined arms is they're going to use the automatic weapon fire and concentrate that on the enemy, so that the enemy has to stay low, has to stay behind whatever barricades they may have, making it hard for them, if not impossible, to react in any kind of coordinated way. By pinning them down with constant automatic weapon fire, that then gives their grenade launchers or their mortars the ability to bring heavier fire onto that position that the enemy cannot respond to, okay? And that puts them in that no-win situation. If they try and move during the automatic weapons fire, while they may not get killed, they're probably going to get hit, and that's going to reduce their effectiveness. On the other hand, if they don't move, they're going to get shellacked with grenades and or mortars, and they are going to get killed. They're going to get wiped out. There's nothing, they have no good option at all, okay? They may be able to retreat, okay? And if they retreat, well, then the Marines win. Okay, so do you see how they're using this? Now, another example would be when Marine aviation is flying close support for infantry. Okay, so up above, you've got jets, most likely, well, nowadays it's going to be the Joint Strike Fighter. But they're going to be providing close support in terms of either strafing or maybe low-level bombing of various positions, keeping the enemy from being able to respond, keeping them probably within the combat zone. And then in the meantime, Marine forces can move in behind the air attack and wipe the enemy out. So they work together in that way, okay? And or, by the way, you can also use the air element to come in behind the strafing or whatever, immediately drop Marines into the hot zone. They can spread out and wipe out the enemy that's been subdued by the air attack. Okay, and all of this is coordinated closely, okay, in a way that makes it extremely difficult for the enemy to respond. Okay, so that's what they mean by combined arms, using whatever combat power the Marine Corps brings to bear in a coordinated way to meet their objective. Okay, so you may say, well, wait a minute, we don't want to wipe out our customers. No, you do not. And you probably don't want to literally wipe out, your competition either. Okay, so now let's apply this to an example in the civilian world. I'm going to use a recent example where it was used, I think, very effectively. So if you've been on this earth in the last month, you have been, and actually probably the last, 2 or 3 months, you I don't think could have escaped hearing a promotion for the Barbie movie. Okay, I haven't seen it, candidly not interested. My point in bringing it up is there was nowhere you could go without hearing about it. It was everywhere. It was on television. I'm sure it was being promoted in movie theaters. It was on radio. It was in print media. It was being promoted by numerous other products as tie-ins. Everywhere you went, there was some kind of promotion for the Barbie movie. As a consumer, especially, and I say this, tongue in cheek, you were in a no-win situation, a no-escape situation, we'll call it. Okay, there was nowhere you could go unless you were going to bury yourself, I guess, in an underground shelter with no contact with the outside world, where you weren't going to hear about the Barbie movie. It was a saturation. Okay, and I'm sure that was by design. Okay, and I suspect that was part of the plan from the beginning, from the time that Mattel got together with, I don't remember which studio made the Barbie movie. It doesn't matter. But from the time that Mattel got together with the studio that produced the Barbie movie and they started planning it, I would be willing to bet that they were combining all the different areas in which they had influence in order to enlist them in the success of this movie. Okay, so it wasn't, none of this happened by chance. It all happened through a coordinated effort of the initial licensor, Mattel, the studio, okay, all of the other companies, whether it was, there was some insurance company I know that did Barbie tie-ins. I still see them on occasion. I mean, so many other companies all working together to bring their efforts to the success of this movie. Okay, that's on, if you will, sort of the strategic level. Okay, and then on the more of the tactical level, right, within the studio that produced the movie, again, I suspect that as they developed the movie itself, and again, I haven't seen it, but I suspect that there were certain things in the movie that the marketing and advertising people at the studio lobbied to get in order to make the movie more easily promotable. Okay. And again, they were using, the story department, the art direction department, the marketing department, probably, the department that deals with exhibitors, movie theaters. All of the various departments of that studio were working together in order to create a movie that would be highly promotable and therefore very likely to have the kind of box office gross that the Barbie movie had. What, $1 billion in, I think it was, a week and a half or 2.5 weeks, something like that. Okay, over $1 billion worldwide gross. I don't know where the gross stands right now, but I think significantly more than that probably at this point. Okay, all of that happened by design. Now, compare and contrast that with the other movie that came out, I think it was the same weekend. That's why they had this whole, sort of, what do they call it, Barbieheimer or something like that. The Oppenheimer movie came out, I think on the same weekend. And it had nothing like the promotion that the Barbie movie had. Okay. First of all, they weren't promoting a toy. God forbid, nuclear weapons, right? Robert Oppenheimer was a famous scientist who was instrumental in the creation of the atomic bomb. So there was a real life figure there, not, a toy that a company had been making for decades and decades. Okay. Second of all, while there was kind of the standard movie promotion for Oppenheimer, there was not this broad-based marketing campaign where you had, everything from insurance companies to probably, beer companies or whatever, all promoting Oppenheimer. And they were all promoting Barbie, right? They were busy doing that. I'm not sure what those tie-ins might have been for Oppenheimer, but, if they had gotten more creative, they could have thought of some. So, for example, Universities might have gotten involved with promoting the movie, okay, to their students, perhaps, or organizations, Caltech. There were universities involved in the Manhattan Project, so there could have been tie-ins there. I don't know. I'm just thinking out of the box here. So Oppenheimer could have done a combined effort to promote it. They just didn't, for whatever reason. They didn't decide to do that. They used a fairly typical movie promotion scheme. Okay. And that's the difference between the two. And you can see it reflected in the box office. Now, Oppenheimer was lucky, I guess, to come out the same weekend as Barbie. And people went, made a big thing about going and seeing both movies, even though they were very, very different movies. And presumably they were designed to attract different types of audiences. Okay. So it did benefit from that, but I don't think that was planned in the sense of the people who produced and marketed Oppenheimer thought, well, let's bring it out on the same weekend as the Barbie movie because we're going to get a big boost from the Barbie movie. They may have thought, well, we'll sort of counter program it to Barbie. And so everybody who doesn't want to go see Barbie will come see us. But I would bet you they did not plan on people seeing both. Okay, especially if they were if they were scheduling it as a counter programming ploy to get non-Barbie viewers to go see Oppenheimer. Okay. So the Barbie movie is a civilian life example of how to use combined arms or combined efforts, we might call them, in the civilian world. Okay, Oppenheimer, much less so. All right, so how do we apply this to our own businesses? Well, the first lesson hopefully is now obvious. Whatever it is that we're offering to our clients and customers, we want a whole of company approach to doing that. So the services that we offer, okay, when we tailor those services, we want input from the marketing people on how to best tailor them so that they can be marketed the most effectively. Okay, now that doesn't mean that we necessarily give the marketing people veto over what the firm does. I don't mean that at all. What I mean is we develop our marketing plans in close coordination with the people who are going to be doing the work. Okay, the more the marketing people understand what a company does, the more effective they can be in putting that message out. Okay, and it's marketing shouldn't be an overlay. Marketing should be an integral part of how we craft our business. That's what in many ways branding is all about. Okay, so if we're in some kind of professional business, whether it's law, accounting, real estate, financial services, okay, how we present our business to the public is as important, especially these days, as how competent we are in performing those services. Okay, if we cannot present ourselves, what's the word I'm looking for? Compellingly to our potential customers and clients, it to a large extent is not going to matter how well we perform our services or how well we make our products. Nobody's going to hear about them. Nobody's going to buy them. Nobody's going to engage us. Okay. Now, I've been talking mostly from a combined, marketing impact because that's what spreads the word. But I would say too that there's a broader way of looking at combined efforts in our businesses. So one of the key aspects of a business is how are we presenting ourselves to the public in terms of our standards, our ethics, what we believe in. Okay, there's been a lot of controversy over the last couple of years, especially about companies taking political stands, for example, and they've gotten a considerable amount of blowback from both sides of the spectrum. Okay, if you've looked at the examples of Bud Light and Target, okay, it wasn't just a matter of one side of the spectrum, lambasting them, and that was it. It's then they tried to pivot, and then the other side lambasted, and they tried to pivot. It's like they became a ping pong ball. Okay. Now, I would argue one of the reasons that's the case is they have not integrated fully enough what it is they really stand for, what is really important to them. Okay, you may have heard the term rainbow washing, right? Which is what a lot of the people in the sort of LGBTQ community call what companies do. Their contention is that companies who are marketing to that group is just doing so in order to, expand their customer base, but there's no real commitment to the ideology of these groups. Okay, now maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know. I'm not commenting on that aspect of it. What I'm saying is you can avoid becoming a ping pong ball, especially in things like social issues, by deciding where are we really going to be with respect to these. Are we going to take a stand? And if we get blowback, are we going to still stand there? Because if the answer is no, then you're not taking a stand. Okay. Or are we going to take the attitude that our primary purpose is commerce, and we're not going to get involved in political issues, especially hot button political issues? Okay. And if we take flack for not getting involved, are we going to stand on our principle? Okay. If you're going to stand on your principle, whatever it is, to get involved, not get involved, to be involved only to this, whatever it is, once you've affirmatively made that decision and combined it into the strategy, operations, and tactics of your business, then if there's any kind of blowback, it doesn't matter, because you've thought it through, you've made your decision, and if any statement needs to be made, it's not going to be any different than any statement you've had to make before. This is our position. Our position is we want to be the, beer company for everybody, and we don't want to alienate anybody. We don't want to give special preference to anybody. We're here for enjoyment. Okay, which is presumably what Bud Light is going to say now. Okay, now have they thought that through? I don't know. I don't work for Bud Light. My point is that if we think these through, if we talk about what can happen as a result of whatever position we're taking, okay, then what we're actually doing is we're placing our potential detractors in a no-win situation, because they'll start throwing verbal bombs at us or whatever, and we'll sit back and say, we've already, as a company, thought this through, talked this out. This is the position we're taking, and we respectfully disagree with the groups criticizing us. And that's the end of it. And let them, let the Furies spin around or whatever, but we know where we're at. And in that way, we're in an we can only win situation, best case scenario, okay? And that's what we're trying to do. So again, we want to have as much of our, as many parts of our company involved in as much of the decision-making process as possible, okay, in order to be as fully integrated in the way that we're operating and leading our businesses. And that will give us the best chance at getting through the vicissitudes of business life. Okay. And by the way, the same thing applies to our own lives. Okay. I'm not going to get into that in this, but we want to be as holistic as possible. Okay. In how we deal with ourselves and our businesses. So I'm going to go back real quickly. This is the idea now, coming back to what motivates all the shows of the 3 pillars of attainment. It's to get us thinking about holistically our lives. Okay. And by the way, you could take the 3 pillars of attainment and you could apply it to your business. What is the identity of your business? What is the mindset of your business? What is the health of your business? What are the relationships your business needs? What are the finances? How is your business growing? How is it providing an outlet for your employees? Okay, you could take these and again, a business in many ways, especially if it's a corporation, is a creature of its own. Okay, so the idea is to think of it holistically so that everything is operating together as well as possible. Now, that doesn't mean that some parts are going to, that doesn't mean that there won't be some parts that are taking precedence over others. There will be, always. Okay, this idea of operating in perfect balance, I think there's more stress trying to achieve balance than there is in moving forward and rebalancing and periodically. Okay, that's certainly the best investing strategy. It's the best strategy for ourselves, our lives, and it's the best strategy when we're talking about combined arms. We're going to want to work as holistically as possible with the various parts of our business, recognizing that at times, we've talked about this before, there's going to be supported aspects and supporting aspects, and those may change depending on the circumstances. Okay, so that is the conduct of war applied to business, and these concepts do build on each other. So if you haven't seen the other shows or you've only seen a few of them, I do encourage you to go to my YouTube channel and look at the past shows that are within the same grouping there. I believe there's a total of 8 of them, okay, and see how they interrelate. And that will give you the firmest grasp on the conduct of war and applying it to your business. So that's what I've got for you today. Here you see on the screen, this is where you can get help. You can ask questions, you can make comments, good, bad. Always interested in hearing your thoughts. Okay, these links will be in the show notes. Okay, here's the legal stuff. Okay, and let's go ahead and stop the sharing. So next week, we're going to start on another topic within Marine Corps warfighting doctrine. We're actually going to be talking about how cultural issues impact warfighting and therefore how we can translate that into running our businesses. So I invite you to tune in a week from today at 11 a.m. Pacific time for the next edition of Business Lessons from the Military. Tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Pacific is my show, Business Lessons from the Military. And we're going to be talking about what kind of insurance do you really need? Okay, there's lots of incentive on behalf of financial service people to sell you insurance. But what do you actually need to carry? Okay, so we're going to talk about what insurance is, how it works, when it's needed. We're going to talk about all of those issues tomorrow. So I invite you to tune in again, 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, Wednesday, tomorrow. And then next week, starting on Monday, with Trusts and Estates Weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific time, we'll have the next set of episodes of the Way to Wow shows. So I thank you very much for joining me today. Hope you found it useful. as I do all the shows that we do. They're all here for your benefit. And one last thing before we go, and that is, if you're not a subscriber to my YouTube channel, do consider doing so. That way you can be notified anytime a new episode is posted, and you won't miss out on any of the information that we have to offer you. So thanks again for joining me, and signing off, Marie, darling, you are my bell. See you soon, folks.